Well, good morning. Finally, good morning. I can say that again. It's been 7 months, I think, since my last blog. That's not to say I haven't been out and about. For reasons I might go into later, I just haven't been filming. So it's nice to be back. It's 9:45 on a cold November morning. And that is Loch Earn down there. This big white lump behind me is my target for the day, Ben Vorlich. And I'm in Ben Vorlich. The conventional way up this hill is from Vorlich, which is where I started down on the loch. And then about 1.5 kilometres, 2 kilometres up the hill, the path splits. And the main tourist track, I suppose, goes up this way, goes up the back of this hill, this wee notch, and then climbs up straight up the north ridge of Ben Vorlich. But what I'm doing is, it's my usual preferred way up this hill actually, because it's quieter more than anything else, a bit more interesting maybe, is to come up through the Bealach at the head of the glen up here. You go right through and then you come up and round the back of Ben Vorlich via its south ridge, and then we'll come down the north ridge. It's on a track like this for the most part. I seem to, from recollection, I think it kind of peters out when you get up to the Bealach, and from memory I think it's quite wet, but it has been cold. It's not as cold this morning, it's about 3 or 4 degrees down at the loch, but the last few days, best part of a week, has been down to 0 and below, so the ground is really nice and frozen. So I'm crossing my fingers that it's going to be actually an easier crossing of the boggy bit than it might otherwise be. But that's the joy of winter, I'm always saying to people, at least when you get a proper winter, is that you find access can be easier to some parts of the country. Bogs get frozen over. But in recent years it seems to be becoming less of a sure thing, it seems. Over my shoulder you can see, just popping up now, that's Ben Glass in the middle and Ben Lawes on the right. Weather forecast for today, fairly benign, but it's really still down here. And I've had to take some layers off already. It gives that false impression it's going to be more of a benign day than it probably is. I think once you get up the top, it's going to be a bit of a breeze, it's going to be very cold. But certainly for the most part, while I'm here, just enjoying the calm. Just the sound of the burn, a raven or two. Nice. I am hoping that this high level stuff might clear a little bit to give a bit more of a sunny day, but I think we're on the cusp of all that east coast stuff that's coming and filling the central belt with a bit of lower cloud. This part of Perthshire is not quite that far away from the coast, I suppose, so it does get the effect of weather coming off the North Sea. We'll see. Of course, the problem when you have a stop-start winter, freezing, thawing, is paths turn into this. I'm never quite sure where to put my feet when this is just completely iced up. Not that I'm ever going to complain about it being cold and icy. That's what we all want. But a bit more snow would be nice. I may yet come to regret my choice of route, because this snow is, I mean, it's lovely, but it's got a crust, as you can hear. It's the problem when, you know, it's thawing lower down. It's great for consolidating a snowpack, freezing and thawing. I dare say it will loosen up as the day goes on, but oh god, it's hard work. Of course, once you get up higher, it just stays cold all the time and it doesn't thaw so it stays nice and soft. So you have the crunchy stuff down below, and then as you go higher, it starts to soften up a bit and gets a bit looser. I was looking at everyone's excited tweets and reports from the hills over the last couple of days, and David Linton put a photo up from the Fearcall Ridge in the Northern Corridors and the Cairngorms, and lovely way of putting it, how he had to get up the hill. He had to swim up the ridge because of all the powder. So, I mean, this is nowhere near as high as that, so I wasn't expecting anything like that. Nevertheless, I'd rather be swimming in powder than crunching on crust. Ooh. Anyway, we are slowly but surely approaching this cleft, which is at the head of Ben Vorlich, and that is not an end to the trudging because it's still a couple of kilometres that way. You can go up as far as you like, really, before you attempt to join the ridge, but it's just it's a nice walk anyway. Well, I say that in summer it's a nice walk, but with all this trudging, might think differently. Several reasons why I wanted to do this hill today, and by this route. So just let me figure out a way through this first. This bog, cold as it's been. Oh god, not yet frozen. To do with a lot more sub-zero days than this than we've had to freeze all this sort of stuff up. Anyway, yes. I mean, part of the joy of coming this way round is you get to see the side of the hill that you don't normally see, and that goes for any route choice, I suppose, is trying to find innovative, revealing walks, approaches to familiar hills. So it's nice in that respect. And certainly coming around this side of Ben Vorlich, you do get quite a good view of the actual, the final flanks of the hill up there and the crags up there. Also, coming this way, bathed in sunshine. If you go straight up the ridge, the sun's very low this time. It's cold and it's dark up there at the best of times. So we're getting the sun. And when we come up the south ridge, south facing of course, so more sun. So that's going to be nice, especially because all that high level cloud is dissipated. Lovely. Someone who's stayed in Edinburgh who now stays in Fife. This is one of the closest Munros for me. The closest big hills, I suppose, when you get the snow. So that's reason enough for coming here. So I've been up quite a few times, as I imagine most folk in the Central Belt, most hill walkers probably had. But I've been up it this year as well. I came up in end of August. One of the walks I was leading for the Ramblers this summer to try and get new people to walk with us. We came up here on a very hot day, so I quite liked the idea of a contrast, I suppose. It was one of the hottest days of the year going up that hill, so it seemed a nice thing to do to come back here just a few months later and see it in a completely different light. But also I was up East Lomond in Fife the other day, and Stuckercroin, Ben Vorlich and Ben Moor presented themselves as this beautiful trio of hills at sunrise. Beautiful light. And as is usually the case, when you see hills at first light or in the evening in that sort of light, especially under bright sunlight, the snow can make them look more heavily laden with snow than they actually are. So I dare say the light that morning gave a bit of a false impression of how much snow was here, but it did look, certainly on this side, it looked like it had quite a lot. So that was another reason for coming. I saw it the other day and thought, ooh, I'd quite like to climb that. And here I am. It's quite a cool place though, eh? It's always so quiet. And there's never anyone here. but it has this much more jagged appearance, sort of the crags up there. It's completely different to how the hill looks from most other angles. It's tempting to just head on up, just go straight up, but no. Torturous as the snow is, I'm going to plod on. It's funny when the snow's like this, there's no fighting it. You know, there's a temptation in a way to try and get along a bit quicker. It just zaps your energy. You just have to plod, just go with it. And here we are, just cresting. I don't remember having to lose quite so much height as that, but needs must. I think actually it's time for something to eat. Time to put sun cream on, if nothing else. And all that cloud's gone. It's nice to find a boulder, shelter behind. Okay, something to eat. It might be November, the end of November, but it is still really bright, and with the snow down, you really can't take any chances. You see it all the time in sort of, especially late February, March, you know, which is typically would be the sort of the best time for skiing in Scotland when you got all that snow. But when you get spring snow at the end of winter and you see people up at Glencoe or Cairngorm, wherever, just completely lobstered up, completely red, because they think, oh, it's cold up here, I didn't think to put sun cream on. I need it in January through cloud. It's just a curse, I suppose, of having this colour hair. Although apparently it does make it easier to absorb vitamin D from the sunlight. So if you're fair-skinned, your body makes it more readily, apparently, if you've got fair skin. So that's the plus point. On the flip side, being burning and all that sort of stuff, and skulking around in the shadows for 9 months of the year. Right, just gonna see how far to go. Looks like it's about another, well, it's a kilometre and a half to there's a little shed thing down there, there was. It's about another kilometre and a half to that, and that's kind of the foot of the ridge, I suppose, but I'll probably join it a wee bit before that, so about another kilometre down the way, going downhill, only to come up again, and then it'll be on the ridge proper. So yeah, getting there. I really must get a bigger bag for winter months. All the stuff I carry means that every time I need to get... Actually, I'm not the most efficient person at packing anything, really. But everything's jammed into one compartment, so it means the water's in there, but it stops it from freezing anyway. But it's like all of these things, cost money to get new rucksacks, get all the best kit. You just end up spending forever. Anyway, something to eat. Oh, sunbathing in November. Okay. Before I get too cold. Sun might be warm, but it's still 3 degrees. Wow. It's pretty cool. It's not, I know I keep saying it, but it's kind of not what you think of Ben Vorlich. It just feels so smooth when you go up from the other path, not so craggy and jagged as that. It's cool, eh? And then it just sort of opens up into this big flat expanse, which is probably quite boggy from recollection, but I don't know, it doesn't look too bad. And the snow's softened up quite a lot now, actually a bit lower down and south facing. But anyway, so the ridge comes down, and it is just a case of picking at which point you want to go up. I usually wait till I get way beyond the crags and go quite a way long down that way. Yeah, I do like it out here. It's got a very wild feel. That event essentially going up that way gets you to the head of Glen Artney, and if you follow that off to the left, it takes you back towards sort of St Fillan's, Conry, out that way. But it's quite. I've never tried to walk through from here actually round into that glen. I imagine it's quite tough going because of all the tussocky grass, and I don't think there's that many paths out there. You can see though, lovely and wild it may be, but it is the rougher option walking through all this stuff. And it's a bit spongy underfoot now, and it's been quite dry even with the snow, so you can imagine it would be very boggy otherwise. But surely it's worth it for all this. And I haven't seen anyone. Well, picked my ascent point, and I'm now gaining height again, heading up onto the ridge. The snow is much wetter, and I have to say it wouldn't be unwelcome if it was actually a bit firmer. Never happy. Well, that's quite a view, isn't it, to come over a ridge and see that. That's Stuckercroin, looking really sort of iced up and rather wonderful today on a gorgeous sunny day. I think the first time I did these Perthfields, Ben Vorlich's up here of course, Stuckercroin's over there. I think the first time I did it we actually came through here with a pal of mine, and we went up on that little notch and then came up this big long ridge and then came down and came up Ben Vorlich. It's quite a nice way of turning it into a big circle. It's a nice walk in summer, although I don't know, imagine that could be very, very boggy and unpleasant. Now I'm overheating. Wow. I did say actually that the wind was probably going to ease a little bit in the afternoon. It's certainly a bit calmer on this side of the ridge anyway. I think if I go to the crest of the ridge it's going to be a bit windier. Well, the hat's back on. Suddenly got much colder, windier, and the snow's getting less crunchy just in the last 50 metres or so, which you'd expect with height. What I've found, I'm coming in and out of someone's footprints, and I say someone being the operative part of that. One set of prints down this ridge, that's all. Think how many prints are on the other side of this hill, going up and down that ridge, but only one person's been down here today, or in the last 2 days even. This isn't my first snowy walk of the season. It's my first sunny snowy trudge, I guess, but I was out with Aberdeen Young Walkers in Glendall last weekend, which was the first time I've been in snow this year, and that was it's just such a treat, isn't it, being out, and everyone who I was with, or the whole group, you could just say everyone was beaming and just loving being out in the snow. I don't know what it is about, the first snow that gets everyone so happy. There was one of the ladies who was there. I was walking behind her, and she was walking along, and I just heard her go, ah. And I said to her, "That's a happy sigh if ever I've heard one." And she said, "It's never occurred to me if a sigh is happy or sad or otherwise, but yeah, I suppose you're right. It was a happy sigh. You could just tell everyone was just high on snow and being out in the first snow of winter. It's just, how can you not love this? I know people hate it. Some people stay off the hills in winter. I know there's an element of fear, I suppose, and experience comes into play, of course. But I know quite experienced hill walkers who flee and don't go on the hills in the winter. How can you miss this? Anyway, one foot in front of the other, slow trudge. Very happy. And that's the summit coming into view. Still quite a way off, unfortunately, with all this trudging. Oh God, it's hard work. Now Ben Vorlich doesn't actually have much shelter on the top, any shelter on the top. So seeing as it's quite calm here, I think this is a good chance before the final push to the summit for a sit down, a drink, some more coffee. I'm quite enjoying taking my time like this actually. I mean it's difficult to do anything but in these conditions. But I've got all day. Or at least I've got all daylight hours. Right. Well, it's full winter clobber now for the last bit. I'm having to really slam my feet down because the crust isn't tough enough to take my feet. So you have to make sure you go through it, otherwise it just saps your energy. Getting there. The reason I've not been out doing blogs or doing much on my own hill walking, I suppose, is I'm December, January. I'm just over 3 months away from the end of my 3-year tenure as president of Rambler Scotland, and I set my own personal goal when I started in 2017. Because I knew nothing about the organisation really, I thought the best way to learn about it is to go out and meet people, go out and actually walk with people. So I set it upon myself to walk with all the groups in Scotland. There's 55 of them. There were 54 when I started, now there's 55. And I'm on 48, which just a few months ago, so I'm fairly confident I can finish it and get around all the groups. So that's why essentially I think most of my spare time has been spent doing that. So if I had spare days when I might otherwise have been up hills, I've been walking in groups, which is a completely different thing for me. It's been wonderful, coming to its end now, but yeah, that's why I'm trying to get around all the groups. We're just 7 to go. The ones I have left, it's like bagging Munros actually. You do the ones that are close to you first, and eventually you just got the farthest flung ones left. So I'm probably tomorrow driving down to Galloway to go out with the Wigtown group, and then the next day going out with one of the Ayrshire groups down near Sanker, hopefully. And then what's that leave? That leaves Butte, Loch Gilphead, that's Argyll, East Lothian, Badenoch and Strathspey, and Kilmarnock, and then I'll be done. I'll have an immense sense of achievement. I'll be so chuffed. I haven't bagged all my Munros, but I'll have bagged all my Rambler Scotland groups. Anyway, whether or not the winter carries on in this vein remains to be seen as ever. Can't be worse than last year, can it? Currently November it's working out to be a below average month. October was below average, but the Met Office are putting out their probabilities for the winter, and it looks like there's a higher probability of the remainder of winter being milder than average, which I don't really want to hear. Don't think any of us do. Last year was drier than the long-term average, warmer than the long-term average, sunnier than the long-term average. Disappointment all round. So Please, 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 please. Can we have a proper winter, please? Please! I'm always very dubious when we get weather like this early on, October, November. Because apart from 2 years ago when we had that wonderful winter that lasted 5 months, I don't know, I might be making it up, but I get the feeling that a front-loaded winter in November, to get it in November, almost always disappoints. So here's hoping. Well, as always happens on the first big snowy walk of the season, slowing down, taking its toll, all its trudging. It's only natural really, it takes a lot more exertion than you're used to for much of the year. It's very welcome though, and the more you have, the more you do, the fitter you get, I suppose, for your winter walks. Excuse me, it's this boulder field. Kinds of holes in between the rocks. Nearly there. I can see the top. God. It's just up there behind me. Well, here we are, just cresting the ridge with a wonderful view, and the summit is just up there. It's gone quite flat and dull. I hadn't even noticed, so busy yakking and faffing, taking pictures, you don't notice that the sun's completely gone pretty much. But that's alright. It's still pretty amazing. Oh, look at this. That is a sycamore seed, and you've got to wonder what it's doing all the way up here, brought up with the wind no doubt, but clearly not going to amount to much all the way up here. Last of these old boundary fence markers. Ah, there we are. Finally, the twin tops, I suppose, of Ben Vorlich. 900 and something meters high. It doesn't matter, does it? It's big, it's white, it's snowy, it's cold, and those are the things that really matter. Amazing though, I mean, it was so windy down there, but the wind, as they said it would, has completely dropped. It's almost benign up here. It's incredible. It's just, there were a couple of people milling up here just before I got up here, but I think most people have now gone down, so I've got the place to myself. It's so quiet. I really love. It's one of my. I think it's probably one of my favourite views on a hill. Actually, is just looking from this top to that one, and just a sort of the sort of triangle pyramid. That shape it makes. It's not a sharp ridge by any stretch of the imagination, but it's shapely. Lovely evening light. It's after 2 o'clock now, so you can see the Lawes Range over there, looking the part. They've been going in and out of cloud for the last hour or so, but you can see it's quite a wintry outlook today in this third week in November. It's just a bit different to what it was like on the last weekend of August this year, when everyone was sat up here. I've never seen so many people at the top of a hill in Scotland, I don't think. It was just bonkers, and as a colleague of mine said, when everyone up here sort of lounging around, staring into the horizon, and so it looked like a beach. It really did, it had that look. It's very different now. It's quiet, there's nobody here, and it's cold. My feet are cold, my toes are cold. But I wouldn't have it any other way. That's the way down. This ridge here, all the way back down. It can be confusing sometimes, because sometimes when you're in bad visibility, it can be too tempting to sort of walk off in that direction. You know, you think you're sort of following the line of the ridge, but actually you want to come off to the right. Otherwise you end up down at the Bialach before Stichachroin. Not a problem today with this visibility though. Oh, it's worth mentioning, all the way over there, clear as day, is Arran. See, it's goat fowl, all the way over there. This looks so close. I suppose it is really, isn't it? And I don't know if this is going to pick it up, but all the way over there, I don't know if it's going to focus. I can see Ailsa Craig just popping up. I don't think it's going to see it, but it's there. I've got that thing now though where I don't want to come down now that I'm up here. You spend so much effort and energy getting to the top of something, eh? And then, especially when it's as glorious as this, and then you just don't want to go down. There's no wind at all. And I can still hear a few stags. You know, into November, I can still hear some stags bellowing out. It's deathly still. I just can't get over it. It was so windy down there, and there were, you know, it was supposed to be sort of 35, almost 40 mile an hour on the tops this morning, but suddenly it's just dropped. I mean, the sun's gone, changing weather, the clouds come in, but the wind has gone as well. It's amazing. Well, I stopped down there for coffee, so I don't feel the need to stop on here, and it is getting on, so I really need to head down that way. So this is a much steeper line coming down here than you get in the summer, because it sort of zigzags its way down, and it's quite dicey with gravel, quite slippy. It's one of the good things about winter, I suppose, is it covers up a lot of things that otherwise hinder you at other times of the year. This is actually quite a nice, easy descent. Anyway, an amazing day. Great to be back in winter conditions. Great to be back blogging. And here's hoping that the next one is snowy and isn't too far in the distant future. Cheerio.